Hey boys, welcome back to the channel. It's going to be some more Insaiyans insights, and it's going to be the round 7 tips and preview. Again, I've been busy. I'm not gonna get a chance to really do a full video on the round 6 review, but I'll talk a little bit about. I might start doing that where I just make this like tips and preview. I'll sort of discuss how they played in the week previously in this one, unless I get like a good amount of time. It's just, you know, it's tough. It's tough at times to do the videos, but yeah, let's get into it. So Thursday night footy, it's not the Bronx, and it's probably the funny thing is, dude, it's probably the one game where the Bronx might actually win a match, and they're not on the Thursday night. I'm spewing. But it's a good change. Honestly, I'm happy the Broncos aren't on Thursday night. I'm a Broncos fan, and I get annoyed that they're always on. Well, usually it's Thursday or Friday, but they've started the season with the Bronx on Thursday. I mean, it's a little bit of off topic here, but it's people might wonder why they do that, and it's because the Broncos get the best views. Like people support the Broncos. Like they want people watching the games when they come back, and the Broncos are a draw card. So people wonder why they get like the Channel 9 Friday night and Thursday night footy. It's because they get the biggest crowds, they get the most viewership. That's the reason. But regardless, let's get into this one. So Panthers Rabbitohs. Now, I'll say straight away, this is a tough game. The Rabbitohs obviously. The big inclusion, Cody Walker back in, Cameron Murray back to lock. It makes their team so much better. James Roberts is tipped to come back in. It'll be interesting to see where they play him. Or, I mean, you know, Wayne Bennett does love James Roberts, but he loves Campbell Graham, and he loves Braden Burns as well. So it's going to be interesting to see like where they all slot in, because I feel like Campbell Graham has been exceptional in the centres. I think Campbell Graham, at the moment, I would definitely be tipping Campbell Graham for a New South Wales spot, whether on the wing or in the centres. He could play either, but Campbell Graham he's been amazing. So Braden Burns is probably going to get the punt for Roberts, but I mean, Burns has been pretty solid. Not his best, but yeah, it's a big inclusion. He's not in the team at the moment. I'm pretty sure he is going to be back. And then they're pretty much full strength. Other than that, I like Liam Knight on the bench. Add some good fight. Actually, Roberts is on the interchange. Okay, that's changed my view. Because he's on the bench, is he actually going to stay on the bench and come on? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see regardless, but it is a big inclusion. The Panthers, though, I mean, they've been killing it. Yeah, the Panthers have been exceptional. They won last week. They looked pretty darn good, beating the Storm of all teams. I mean, honestly, the Storm haven't looked that good. In all honesty, they lost to Canberra the first week back, and Canberra haven't been that good since. The Panthers now have been the Storm. The Storm have been pretty off their game, in all honesty, but it's still a big win. And the Panthers, they've competed very, very well in all matches. The only game they've looked terrible was that Knights game where the Knights had Ponga out, Pierce got injured, Watson got injured. Who else? Brayley was out. Someone else was out. They should have won that, but they didn't. It was a draw. So this is tough. This is a real tough one. I'm gonna tip the Rabbits. I just feel the Rabbits are on a bit of a roll. Latrell Mitchell is looking good. Obviously some issues, some dramas going on with Mitchell, like there always is, but I like the Rabbitohs. I like their team. It's coming together nicely. I like their forward pack. I think it's going to be a tough one. I think it's going to be a pretty high scoring game, honestly, and I think the Rabbitohs are going to win. But Dylan Edwards, I talked about it last week. Dylan Edwards was a huge inclusion. He just makes the team so much more potent in attack. I mean, like I said, Aikens is a good player, but Edwards is just sort of Aikens but better, basically. Mansell's looking in good form. Brian To'o is an absolute monster. I love To'o. He's so good, dude. And he's built like a freaking tank. I'm still losing my mind at Billy Slater calling him one of the smallest players in the game. I'm losing my mind because he's not that tall, but he's built like a freaking tank. He's all muscle, dude. He definitely is not light. He's a big boy. So yeah, I like the Panthers, but I'm gonna tip the Rabbits. I think the Rabbits can take it to them, and honestly, Mitchell, he just adds that X factor, and Cody Walker just brings Mitchell into the game. And I think Cody Walker and Mitchell, I think is a great little combo that is only going to get better. So, yeah, I'm tipping the Rabbitohs. I think it should be a really good game, though. I'm excited for Thursday night. The next game, Friday night footy, we have the Warriors taking on the Storm. Unfortunately, Alisi Katoa is out injured, which is a big loss for the Warriors. Josh Adokar comes back in for the Storm. Marion Seve, he's a good player. I mean, Seve, he could be a starting player at a lot of clubs for sure. He's a solid player, but I don't think wings is spot for one. He's not great under the high ball, and it costs them a few. And Adokar is obviously, he's a supreme winger, so that's a huge inclusion. Jerome Hughes is back in as well. Okay, I thought Hughes was out for a bit longer, but yeah, that's a big inclusion as well. Because honestly, Jerome Hughes is incredibly underrated, dude. He gets no respect. The Storm are like winning games. Hughes is like playing well, and all like the commentators can talk about is like, what are they going to do with their halves? Like, they need to find a halfback and this and that. And are they going to put Cameron Smith to halfback? I'm just there like, what? Hughes has been so solid for them. He's not, he's probably not one of the best halfbacks in the world, but he's a good player. Hughes is a bloody good player, dude. He gets no respect. But with Hughes back in the team, I really like their outfit. Adokar, they're full strength. I mean, the Storm haven't been good. Like I said, the Storm have just not looked. I mean, they've been like, I don't think it's a lack of effort or anything like that. Like they've been putting in. The forwards have been muscling up. The games, watching their games are always physical, always good to watch. But they're not looking slick in attack. And I think Hughes being out was a huge factor for that. Cameron Munster has been carrying their attack. Cameron Munster is I don't know how he does it, dude. I talk about this a lot as well, but I don't know how he does it. He's not big, but he just carries defenders. He's just so strong. It's freakish. It's freakish how he's able to just break tackles and just carry defenders and get the late offloads. He's a freakish talent, Cameron Munster. He's ridiculous. But yeah, I'm definitely tipping the Storm. I think, the Warriors, obviously drama's there as well. Stephen Kearney being sacked. I have no idea why Stephen Kearney was sacked. It makes literally no sense because I think the Warriors have done way better than I thought they would. They haven't been great. Like the couple of their losses have been pretty substantial, but they've won a couple of games and it's tough. It's tough for them. They've had a lot of injuries, having to stay in Australia, and they sacked Stephen Kearney. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Stephen Kearney is not a very good coach, and I feel like Stephen Kearney should have been sacked probably a while ago, but they only recently renewed his contract. I just it blows my mind, like everyone else in rugby league circles. So yeah, weird, very weird. But looking at their team here, I mean, Tuivasa-Sheck, honestly, he's been a bit underwhelming. I mean, he's still putting in the effort, but I don't know, poor old Tuivasa. I feel bad for Roger, dude. I just sort of, I picture RTS at like, if he stayed at the Roosters or if he was at like, if he was at Melbourne, if he was at even like pretty much any other team in Australia, I think RTS he would kill it and he would be amazing, but he has to play with the Warriors. I just feel bad for him, dude. But yeah, it's been not a shocking start, but he's been a bit off his game, that's for sure. But Fusitu'a, I think Fusitu'a came back last week. Ken Mamalo's back, which is huge. Mamalo is, he's a massive weapon for them. Nikorima's been honestly very good. He's starting to run the footy. He's looking very dangerous. But a big reason was that they had Alicia Katoa partnering him, and I thought that combo was looking very dangerous. Unfortunately, he's now out. Jack Murchie comes into the back row. He's a solid player, obviously from the Raiders, but I think they lose a fair bit there. Any other forwards back? Chanel Harris-Tavita on the bench. Farmasili is okay. Ignatius Parsi's back. Isaiah Papali'i. So still no what's his name? Jazz Tavanga, which is probably the biggest omission for them still. But yeah, I'm tipping the Storm here, and I think the Storm are going to win comfortably. I think it'll be a big score line. Especially after losing last week, the Storm are going to come out firing. Roosters v Dragons. Now, Tedesco is named. He probably will play, but I guess it wouldn't shock me if he's a late scratching because of that concussion. I haven't really looked if he was fully cleared to play, but he did get steamrolled and he got freaking flattened, dude. Big Sivo absolutely monstered for old Teddy, but obviously the Roosters without Teddy still very, very strong. They were able to overpower the Eels in a very good game, but the Roosters way too good. Honestly, way too good again. So, straight away I'm tipping the Roosters in this one. I think the Roosters will win, and they should win comfortably, especially against this Dragons team, which has been in pretty poor form. But the Dragons are starting to look a little better. The forward pack, any big changes? Looks pretty similar. Sam Verrills comes back onto the bench. Mitchell Orbison's out of the team. I honestly prefer that. Mitchell Orbison is a great utility player. Don't get me wrong, but I still couldn't understand why Crichton was not getting the starting back row spot. When he first went to the Roosters, and they just look better with Crichton playing 80 minutes rather than Orbison starting and Crichton coming on the bench. It hasn't really mattered, obviously, because the Roosters, they can buy any player they want. It is what it is. And they just got a stack of... they just got so much depth, it just boggles the mind that they can have the depth that they do. But that's the mute point. That's a different discussion. But Angus Crichton, it makes the team so much better in my opinion. Orbison, like I said, he's been a great player. He can play any position, but Crichton's a better player. Let's be real. And I think Sam Verrills on the bench is. I think he adds a little spark to their ruck. And Isaac Liu, Butcher, Collins, great bench. Dragons, the only change here, I saw Jason Saab is in. I don't know if Jordan Pereira is injured or he just got dropped. Also, the big news coming out, obviously, James Graham has left to England. I think it's definitely for the best. I think Graham has been well past his use-by date for a couple of years. I'm not going to lie, I've never really liked James Graham. He's been a great player. Well, I think he's been a good player. I think, honestly, this is probably a fairly unpopular opinion, but I think he's a bit overrated. I think he's overrated. I'm probably a little biased because I've just never liked him because he's a grubby player, dude. He's a grub. Biting Billy Slater's ear definitely didn't rub me the right way, and people sort of forget that and just sort of skim past it. But it's a dog act, and he's done a bit of that in his career. So I've never liked James Graham. So I think he's overrated. I think, I think he's a bit like a Paul Gallen. In my eye. I think he overplays his hand a lot. Like he'll take the ball up when they're in good attacking position and just sort of get in the way of good plays. But that's a little James Graham rant done and dusted. I'm sure it's an unpopular opinion because I know a lot of people like James Graham, but I'm one of the probably few that don't particularly like him. But the rest of it, I mean, Trent Merrin comes into the starting team. I honestly think it strengthens their team. Ben Hunt stays on the bench. Unsurprising, Tristan Saylor's in the reserves, Lafay's in the reserves, Corbin Sims in the reserves. I'm tipping the Roosters. I mean, on paper, the Dragons have a good team on paper, dude. But yeah, I'm definitely tipping the Roosters in this one. It's a game though. The Roosters are bound to lose. Like the Roosters can't keep winning. So who knows? It could be this week. It could be next week. But I'm tipping the Roos in that one. So move on to the Saturday night game, or Saturday afternoon, I should say. Knights v Cowboys. So who comes back in? Jake Granville back in. John McLean is back in. Corey Jensen is out. Valentine Holmes is obviously still the big omission. Still no Michael Morgan. So yeah. What have they done here? Is Granville? Oh, he's on the extended bench. McLean, I would imagine McLean probably comes into the team if he's fit, and that would be a huge boost for them, for sure. I gotta tip the Knights. I just think for some reason. Oh, that's right. I was gonna say it's weird that Bradman Best is out, but yeah, he obviously broke the guidelines, and honestly, he's a dickhead. He's an absolute fool. Yeah, it makes me mad, honestly. He's an 18-year-old kid. Don't get me wrong. And he went home to see his parents, but dude, wake up to yourself, you absolute tosser. I'm sure you can like not go home to see your parents, and I sort of debate that a little bit. I feel like it wasn't so much about going back to see the parents, more so going back to see mates and probably go out and have a few, maybe. It's obviously just hearsay, but I don't respect it at all, because the game is a lot bigger than one kid's wanting to go back and you just like the fucking Warriors have to be out of their home country. They have to stay in the fucking overseas for an extended period of time, and this 18-year-old kid just goes home, breaks the guidelines, and puts the game in jeopardy. So yeah, it's frustrating to see. And I saw a few comments, like people were sort of defending it, being like, oh, but they haven't the restrictions eased up and all that. But they have, but obviously the NRL has to have stricter guidelines, because it's, there's more to it than everyday life. And it just, it makes me mad. But obviously he's out, so Inari Tuala comes back in. Shibazaki retains his position. But yeah, I got to tip the Knights. Kalen Ponga has been just out of this world. He's been incredible. Kurt Mann, I honestly think I'd probably say Kurt Mann has been. Ponga has been the best player, but then Kurt Mann has been. He's been amazing. Kurt Mann has been sensational at 5'8". Mitchell Pearce, I honestly think Mitchell Pearce has been okay. I don't think Pearce has been anything special, but Kurt Mann has been electric in 5'8". I think he's found his position, he's found his club, and he's looking very, very good. Dave Clemmer has been strong. The Saifidi brothers were very, very good last week. Obviously against who were they versing? The Raiders, was it? Raiders? Was it the Raiders? Yeah, it was. Was it? No, it wasn't the Raiders, you fool. Who they? Dude, the memory. as soon as I see the game, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, that's right. Where is the round 7? The Broncos, you fool. I'm trying to just trying to get it out of my head. Not even trying to unremember that game completely. The Broncos, the fucking Broncos, dude, for God's sakes. That one, I was just trying to get rid of that memory. But yeah, they were very good against the poor old Broncos. It doesn't say too much, but I think they're going to be too strong again. I like their team is very balanced. I think McCulloch has been okay. I know a lot of people are sort of, as Broncos supporters, still like, why would you let McCulloch go? Honestly, McCulloch, I'm still not disappointed that McCulloch's left. I've been watching him for the Knights, and I still think he doesn't offer much. Like, he's been a very good acquisition for them because of, obviously, Brayley getting injured and then Connor Watson getting injured. But if it wasn't for that, like, McCulloch, he hasn't really offered too much. He's just been a solid defender and not much else. So, honestly, I'm still not too bothered as a Broncos fan. Obviously, the issues have happened, but I'm not that bothered by McCulloch going. He's been a good signing for the Knights, but as soon as Watson is like fit, I think Watson should be the dummy half, and obviously Brayley, I think, is a better dummy half. So yeah, and then the Cowboys, I mean, what do you even say? I mean, they were awful. They were awful last week. The team is too good for that. But I mean, with Holmes out, I mean, Fido is like, he's obviously very talented, but like I said last week, they lose so much with Holmes being out because Fido is not going to run the ball back from their end. Like, he's a young, small guy. Like, he's going to get absolutely belted taking those tough runs. So he's not going to do it. And you don't really want him to do it. So they lose that extra oomph out of their own end. He can turn it on for sure. But yeah, they lose so much without Valentine Holmes. And then, yeah, I'm tipping the Knights. I'm not confident with that one though, because I feel like the Cowboys could perform. Their team is good, dude. Their forward pack is strong, but yeah, I'm tipping the Knights in this one. I don't think they're gonna flog them though. Surely the Cowboys are gonna come out a little bit better. And now we move on to the Broncos v the Titans. Game of the round, absolute game of the round coming up, and oh boy, it should be a beauty. Now, there's been some changes. Broncos obviously last week were abysmal once again. I do want to rant a little bit because I think the Broncos were pretty hard done by in that first half, because I think the first try, I think, was a try because if you look at like so many instances like that where there's people all around the person with the footy, there has been so many times where the team with ball in hand, someone else comes in and might put their hand on a defender and it doesn't actually result in a no try, and Corey Oates would have scored regardless. But probably the one that more got me was the Ponga sin. Well, not Ponga, but who was it? Oh, Zarko got sin bin. The refs just, they have no awareness for the game. The refs, I'm salty because I'm a Broncos fan, but it's not just the Broncos game, dude. I feel like the Broncos have been screwed over a lot. They've still played terribly, and they wouldn't have won that game regardless. I'm not trying to say that they would have won. The Broncos have been screwed over quite a few times to start this resumption, but a lot of games there have been some awful decisions. Like I don't know. It feels like the decisions are getting worse and worse every week. So yeah, the sin bin was ridiculous. I mean, Ponga just like, he made the tackle. Ponga plants the ball before he got it to his feet. he tries to get up in milliseconds. Obviously, I understand, like, if you have the momentum, you do get the opportunity to play the ball quicker. But it's not like you shouldn't be able to play the ball in literal milliseconds. The tacklers should be able to hold on a little bit. They're not. And the second part, he wasn't even really holding him. Ponga just took a big dive and milked the penalty in the sin bin. It was like, it should have gone against him 100%. But it is what it is. The Broncos were still terrible. They would have lost the game regardless. But yeah, a couple of big decisions early that sort of typified the night. But some big changes. So obviously for Titans, we'll talk about them quickly. Young Tonamapaya obviously out injured. Unfortunately, he's been a great acquisition for the Titans as well. I think he's really stiffened up their back line defensively, and some good skill in attack. But his loss is a big one. Corey Thompson obviously went off early in his debut game for the Titans, but he's a good acquisition for sure. I don't know why I keep saying acquisition now. It's the word of the day apparently. But yeah, I think Corey Thompson, he's a good replacement for them to come in and fill that fullback spot. He's a good little player for sure. So I like, the back line is pretty solid. I mean, Brian Kelly, Dale Copley, Philip Semi, Anthony Don, Thompson. That's a pretty decent back line. And then the forward pack is pretty standard. Nothing really changed. Bryce Cartwright, did he play last week? I can't even remember, dude. And then we look at the Broncos. So it's tipped that Tommy Dearden is going to come in the number 14 to replace Jermaine Azarko. Jamil Hopewade comes onto the bench. Reece Kennedy and Ben Teo. Joe Offengawi at lock. Pengai Jr. in the back row with Alex Glenn. Isaac Luke, obviously at the club. Actually, I'm not going to lie, I was pretty happy that the Broncos signed Isaac Luke. He's been one of my favourite players for a long time. His form has been down for sure, but I've always loved Luke. He's just a great character. He's a great player. And I was happy that they signed him. And he looked pretty good. He looked pretty good in that first half. And I actually thought Corey Pay was decent in the second half. But yeah, I thought Isaac Luke was pretty darn good. Obviously, Pay is now injured. I don't know what he did, but yeah, he went down in training. So Tom Dearden will probably replace Isaac Luke in dummy half, or maybe they'll do a reshuffle. Put I don't know what they'll do. They'll probably just put Dearden at dummy half, but yeah, that's a change there. And then obviously the young gun Tessie New comes in. I don't understand, because Jermaine Azarko hasn't been that bad. Compared to some of the other players, Azarko has been pretty decent. He hasn't set the world on fire for sure. He's before the game got interrupted, Azarko was looking very good at fullback. Since the resumption, I mean, he's been okay. I mean, the Broncos have just been awful, so he hasn't really had much chance in attack, but I thought what he's done has been pretty decent. I just don't understand. I just don't understand how Darius Boyd is not getting dropped. I don't get it. I don't get it. They could put, honestly, the Broncos should have someone else who can come in at center. They just put a young gun at center. They would do a better job than Darius Boyd. He is absolutely awful. If a player runs straight at him, one-on-one, his defense is pretty solid. One-on-one, if someone runs directly at him, he's good enough in defense. If someone's got any type of footwork or speed, Boyd is completely useless. And then in attack, he offers absolutely nothing, dude. He offers absolutely nothing. Every time the Broncos shifting out to the left-hand side, they get a nice little attacking play happening. They shift on to Darius Boyd. This happens literally every time. He sprints for about 5 meters to the outside. He realizes he's obviously not going to outsprint him, so he cuts back, left foot step, and then he tries to cut back on the inside and sort of crab across the field and does nothing. He never sets up his winger. He never beats his man. It breaks down every single time. It looks like they got a nice overlap, and then Boyd gets the ball and completely breaks down the play. I lose it every time, dude. But I'm tipping the Broncos. I'm gonna stop ranting about the Broncos. I might make a full video sort of discussing my thoughts of the Broncos, because there's a lot to unpack and a lot to talk about. So I'm gonna wrap this discussion up. Otherwise, this video is going to be way too long. And if you guys want to see, comment below if you want to see like a full Broncos rant video. I'm tipping the Broncos. I'm not confident. I actually think the Titans could beat the Broncos. But the Bronx have to win. They have to win it. Surely they have to win this game. Pangai Jr. This is the only other thing I'll say. I actually thought Pangai Jr. was pretty good last week. Everyone was giving him shit, but I actually thought Pangai Jr. was I thought him and Glenn were like two of the only players who were actually pretty decent for the Broncos. I mean, Pangai came up with a couple of errors, but he was at least someone who was trying. He was trying to get things happening. He was trying offloads. He was trying to get some attack, and I thought he was pretty good. I don't know. People were ripping into him, but I thought he was okay. Okay, next game. So this is a big game. The Eels v the Raiders. Now, the Eels obviously lost in a blockbuster against the Roosters. The Raiders looked absolutely awful last week in their loss. I tipped the Raiders. I tipped the Raiders in that game, and then obviously against the Seagulls, but the Seagulls had to power out George Tafua. Tom Trbojevic got injured. Dylan Walker got injured in like the first few minutes. Brad Parker got injured in like the first few minutes. The Raiders were just awful. I don't know what's going on with the Raiders, dude, but they just don't look. And it's not even like their attack has been obviously pretty abysmal, but it's not even really their attack. They just don't look as. They don't look as hungry. They don't look as intense as they've had in like the last year. I don't know what's happened. I mean, obviously John Bateman is a huge loss, but you can't put it down to one player. Other than Bateman, they're full strength, dude. Like they got a good team here. They just I don't know. They've lost their spark. They just don't, like, they don't come out of the blocks fast. They don't look that good, and I don't know. The one another thing I'll say, Josh Hodgson. One thing, I cannot believe people actually thought Hodgson and Damien Cook were better dummy halves than Cameron Smith. Absolute fools. Cameron Smith is far and away the best dummy half in the game still. There's literally no contest in that department. But Josh Hodgson, he overplays his hand so much. I think Hodgson is so overrated. It's unreal. Don't get me wrong, he's still one of the better dummy halves. I'm not saying he's terrible, but he is so overrated. And he's a guy that can come up with like incredible matches. Like there can be a game where Hodgson is far and away the best player on the game. He can kick a 40-20, get a try assist, score a try, strip the ball a couple of times. He could be in everything and play a freakish game. But that's the problem. He tries to do everything, and he's not that good. Like he comes up with so many dumb errors. Like I don't know, dude. If I was George Williams and Jack White, I would be so furious with Hodgson. Like, he kicks the ball so much. He always tries little grubbers into the in goal. He's always looking for 40-20s. He's always, like, having a little scoot out of dummy half before he passes it to the playmakers. He's always trying for strips and giving the opposition six more. He's always... And it's you know, obviously there's give and take there, because you want your players to try, you want them to try things on the game. I honestly sort of equate Hodgson with Cameron Munster, but Cameron Munster just does it properly. Cameron Munster tries a lot of different stuff. He's got all the tricks in the book, but Cameron Munster, for the most part of the game, he just plays solid footy. You know, he makes his tackles, he makes his runs, he gets the pass out to his attacking weapons, and then when the game needs something, Cameron Munster comes up with plays. He comes up with trick shots, he comes up with the steals. He knows when to switch it on and off. Josh Hodgson just doesn't know how to switch it off. He's just constantly trying to do these Hail Mary plays, and it really cost the Raiders. I every time I watch the Raiders, dude, I lose my mind at Hodgson just making such foolish errors. But I'm being a little controversial in this video tonight because I feel like, again, it's probably a fairly out there view. I think most people really like Josh Hodgson, but yeah, I'm not like I said, he can have freakish games where he's firing away the best player, but it happens so irregularly, and it's probably compounded by the fact the Raiders haven't been that good. So Hodgson, he's really stood out as like not being very good this year. On the flip side, the Eels. It's a tough game because I felt like last week the Raiders played their best footy against the best teams, but they played awful against the Sea Eagles with so many injuries. But now they're taking on the Eels, who are another heavyweight team. Are they finally going to put an 80 minutes performance together? I don't know. Honestly, have the Raiders lost their touch? Was last year their one good opportunity for the grand final? Maybe they have, but I'm tipping the Eels. I think after that loss against the Roosters, obviously being a tough loss, I think it would instill them with a lot of confidence, and that, you know, Michael Jennings turned the clock back. He looked amazing. Sevo was a powerhouse. So yeah, I'm tipping the Eels in this one. I thought Nathan Brown got suspended for I'm positive Brown got suspended for a couple of games. Am I losing it? I'm sure he did. Maybe he didn't. I thought I saw that on Twitter that he did get suspended, but regardless, yeah, I'm tipping the Eels. I'm not confident because the Raiders, if they play their best footy, they can beat anyone, but yeah, we'll see. This is a tough one. Seagulls v Sharks. Oh man. So big inclusions. Obviously, Brad Parker is fit, which is good. George Tafua comes back in. And Marty DePau, yeah, he comes straight back into the starting side. And yeah, so they got some troops back, but they lose Dylan Walker. So Lachlan Croker comes in for Dylan Walker, which, honestly, I mean, Croker was exceptional last week. Croker was so tough. He looked good. And I mean, I don't think they lose too much. Like, Dylan Walker has been very good at 5'8", but they're very different players. I mean, Walker is very much a ball running 5'8", it works very well with Daly Cherry Evans, but I think Croker, was it last year that Croker got used a fair bit, but then he got injured? Croker has looked very good in his time in the NRL, and I think he's definitely a quality NRL 5'8". So I don't think they lose too much with Croker there. It actually gives Cherry Evans another option to like kick the footy, because I mean Walker didn't really kick the footy much. They lose a little spark for sure, but yeah, Croker's pretty good. Brendan Elliott comes in for Tommy Trebojevic. I mean, that's the big loss. That's the huge one. You know, don't get me wrong. The Seagulls, they won last week without so many players, but to back it up, they're taking the Sharks on those, and the Sharks have been pretty rubbish. But I like that. I mean, Matt Moylan, I think, makes a huge difference to their team. I know Moylan, you know, he's sort of the butt of a lot of jokes, but Moylan makes the attack of the Sharks look so much better. just in kick returns, something as simple as kick returns, he's always looking for options. He'll take it to the line and he'll pass the footy. If there's something on, he'll pass a long ball across to the winger who's in space. He's one of those guys that he can come up with silly plays, but he adds a lot of attack. And I think him and Sean Johnson and Moylan work really, really well together, honestly, because they're very, ad-lib players, and I think they work on the back of each other. So it's tough. I'm gonna tip the Sharks. It's not a confident tip because the Sharks have been terrible, but I just think the Seagulls without Trbojevic and the fact that they won last week, I think they still got a good team. Their forward pack is still monstrous, but I'm gonna tip the Sharks. My tip could change in the lead up to this game, but I'm gonna go with the Sharks. I mean, without Tommy Trbojevic, Brendan Elliott, he's a quality player. He fills in very nicely. He's a player everyone would love to have at their club. As soon as there's an injury in the wing spot, center, fullback, he can play there and do a stellar job, but they just lose so much. They lose so much without Tommy there. So I'm gonna hesitantly tip the Sharks. And then the final game is the Bulldogs v the Tigers. The Bulldogs play. Why do the Bulldogs play literally every Sunday night? But yeah, the Bulldogs v the Tigers. Alex Twal is a big omission, out injured. Zane Musgrove is out as well. So that means who comes in? So Matt Eisenhuth comes into the lock position. Oliver Clark comes into the front row position with Michael Cheekham coming on. I honestly don't know why Cheekham hasn't been on the bench all year. I really rate Michael Cheekham. I think he's a really good player, but I don't know. I mean, the coach obviously knows more than me, but I'm surprised he hasn't been there. So I like Cheekham on the bench. Harry Grant has been outstanding. Josh Reynolds has been pretty good. I still don't really understand why Benji is being dropped for Reynolds though. He is taking on his former club. It should be a pretty fiery game. Honestly, it's a game I'm actually looking forward to with the Josh Reynolds v the Dogs. I think it could be fun. Adam DeWahey, I think, has been pretty good at fullback. And then the Bulldogs, I mean, they won last week. No, they didn't. They almost won. Yeah, that's right. The Sharks just pipped them. Honestly, the Sharks look pretty all right in that game, and they look pretty comfortable. I mean, the Bulldogs scored an intercept try to make it close, but they never looked like they were going to win. So I'm going to tip the Tigers in this one. Hopewade, I think, I'll keep saying it, dude. I said it so many times. I said it literally every time I saw the Bulldogs that Hopewade should be fullback, and it's worked a treat. I think he's been very good. Watene Zalesniak on the wing and sort of shifting. They've sort of been mixing. Zalesniak has been going into center in the wing, sort of mixing it up, and I think it's working well. Kieran Foran is looking pretty good. Forward pack, honestly, I mean, Tuamunga, he looks pretty fit and pretty solid. Dylan Napa is playing pretty well. Fatala Mariner is getting back to his form he showed a couple of years ago. Adam Elliott, who I've never liked, he's actually looking somewhat decent. But yeah, I think the Tigers just have a little bit too much attack in them, and I don't think the Dogs. I can just never tip the Dogs because I just never think they have enough points to win a game. Actually, Kerrod Holland coming into, who's out for them? Christian Crichton is out, so Remus Smith. I actually think this is better for the Dogs. I like Kerrod Holland in the centres. He offers quite a bit of attack. He's got a good offload. And Remus Smith, I probably think wing is his spot as well. So I actually think this is a better team for the Dogs. It adds a little bit of spark. Avarillo has looked pretty good. Defensively, he's pretty bad at the moment, but attack, he looks like he's quite the mover. He's got some speed to burn. But Yeah, I'm tipping the Tigers. I'm tipping the Tigers in this one. So yeah, that's the round 7 tips and in preview. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed. So, put in the comments your tips and what you thought. But other than that, make sure to like and comment, and I'll see you in the next one.